You're watching Fairfield Television, FPAC Channel 9. I'm Susan Kessel with Mark Schaefer and Nancy Horace. We're here today where there's been a lot of progress in the last week or so creating the playground by the Partners for Play. Does it have an official name?
Actually, not yet. I think that's something that we're still working on. It actually was dedicated to Matt Gomer, however, not with the intention of changing the name. It is O.B. Nelson Park, so we still need to, keep that. And so if there's anybody that has any great ideas of what the playground at O.B. Nelson Park could be called, I think we'd be open to hearing those ideas.
Suggestions, right.
And pickets are still available.
Yes.
People can have their names engraved, or a family member or whatever, names engraved on a picket, and I believe they're, $100?
Yes, and that helps pay for the project, which they still, I believe, Nancy, they're interested in creating a pavilion.
Yes, the actual playground itself is paid for. However, we would like to add a pavilion, I believe, in this area right behind where we're standing, which would be a place where parents could sit, or you could have like a picnic lunch when you're out here, or just a place that would be shaded for those people that, don't want to be out here in the sun.
And I would like to say that this is a great place for this to be located. It's by Ball Diamonds, it's by the pool, it's in O.B. Nelson Park. It's a wonderful part of town, and I think just having it here was a really smart decision.
I think so too, and I think we have to thank the city of Fairfield because they actually purchased the land for this to be built here, and then they also, of course, lent a lot of support through the Park and Rec people and Barry Dodd that helped coordinate all of it. So, thanks to the city of Fairfield for making it possible.
And Barry also got that grant for the new water slide to be constructed.
Nice.
So this is all coming together. It's a nice sports complex.
Yep.
Yes, it is.
Recreation complex.
So if you haven't been here yet, you're going to want to come and check it out. There's a lot to see and enjoy in this part of town.
But don't wear sandals.
Right.
At least not with socks.
So, Nancy, there were tons of people. I don't know how many people were involved. Did you ever hear a total number?
Well, I haven't heard an exact number, but I know it was somewhere between 700 and 1,000 people, volunteers that came out. And I think that what's really important to note out of that number is that out of that 700 to 1,000 people that came out during the 5 days that it took to build the playground, there were only 2 paid people really that were here, and those were the 2 gentlemen that were from Leather and Associates, which is the company that we use to help oversee this. Everybody else that was out here really was volunteering their time. I guess I think that's pretty impressive if you think about it.
Yes, it is.
Some of it took a lot of expertise, like Mike Carlson with the concrete and the footings. I mean, all those poles just sort of stuck everywhere like pencils in a cup. And to get those upright and the concrete cured and have everything match, I mean, to me, that's one of the more impressive aspects of the volunteerism. But, people with routers and sanders and, ladies that I'm sure never climbed
drilled before.
all that stuff. Barb
Yes,
Foss.
she drilled. Or no, she routed, I
She
guess.
routed.
Now, the overall chairman was?
Okay, Sarah Cochran and Barry Dodd served as sort of co-chairs. I think Sarah probably was the official person, but Barry was also in there with her together.
So thank the 2 of you, Sarah and Barry, for that. And Nancy, your expertise in the art field, and you did publicity, but that's how you got me involved and Mark involved, was the art and historical.
Right. Basically, I think you're leading up to talking about the history wall here probably, and some of the other embellishments. But the history wall, sort of the story of that was, it was something that Leathers and Associates said was an option that some people chose to incorporate in their playground. And so they just threw it out. And I don't even recall that it got thrown out particularly early in the game. I recall that there was a meeting, maybe at about April or so, where there was another person that was working on maybe putting something in the newspaper to solicit artists to help work on it. And then they sort of handed it off to me, and At first, that was the plan. We would just, maybe put something out in the paper, and then we started thinking from a practical standpoint, in order to be able to get, the proper use of materials, that was going to complicate things a lot because safety is such a concern with a project like this. I would have to say that of all the things that Leathers and Associates was concerned about, safety was number one, because they did not want to be part of creating anything that a child could possibly get hurt on. So from that standpoint, I decided to, check with some people to see whether there would be any, people that I knew that would be interested in helping out with it. Mark Schaefer was one of the first people that I called, because I knew Mark had...
I said no.
He did. I knew history was near and dear to his heart, and I knew that we needed to have people that were interested in the Fairfield's history, first and foremost, as well as being somewhat artistic, to be involved in the project. So, like I said, Mark came to my mind, and plus I also thought perhaps Mark could integrate this somehow with his students, thinking that would be a great way to get students involved. But that was going to be a huge undertaking, and Mark was very busy at school.
End of the year.
Yeah,
End of the year.
We were right in the middle of projects, and
Right.
yeah, it would just been impossible.
And so that didn't work out. So, however, in talking to Mark, I have to say I got so inspired about the project itself, and I started thinking, gee, maybe this is something that I'd like to help with, instead of just, again, throwing it back out to somebody else, because we started talking and brainstorming a little bit about some of the things that could be included in it. And I remember I had a piece of paper, and I could not write fast enough because he was throwing out all these little things like the buffalo. Well, you
Yes.
could put something
And let's
about the buffalo
talk
in.
about some of these things that you wrote down.
Right.
And then when we met, I brought my book, which is actually Fairfield at the Turn of the Century by Mark Schaefer, which you did this in what year?
It was a bicentennial project in 1976. Can you believe it's been that long?
And you actually did all the pen and ink drawings of all the,
You want me to hold them, Mike?
yes, wonderful drawings around Fairfield
There.
at the turn of the century. And I have used...
About 1890 to 1915, I think, is the general time lapse.
I've used this book numerous times for who knows what that comes along, but brought this over to your house, and we started going through and listing things that Mark had listed, and
then we started adding to them. Susan had some great ideas. So that's when I called my friend Susan and said, would this be anything that you'd be interested in helping me work on? Because I think that it could be a lot of fun. And so that's when we started to, she brought all of her little, her books over, and we started to write down just sort of like a laundry list of all the things and all the dates that they happened, because we thought it would be nice if it was possible to try to work somewhat in chronological order. The wall had it had a 9-foot section, and then it had a 5-foot section that bent backwards, and then there was a 16-foot section. And so our thinking was maybe to move along chronologically from left to right with events and with just symbols that would be representative of things that are part of our history.
so we got out a graph paper, we started graphing things out, looking through the book, calling people, and working on this project.
I'm going to show the plan.
Yeah, if you'd
This
like
was
to.
our
This is
actual
what developed.
graph paper plan, which I'm sure is a little hard to see.
It's very tattered. It went through 5 days of pretty serious construction work out here. It got rained on, and all sorts of things.
Things changed a little. We found out what we thought was 5.5-foot wall turned into a 5-foot wall.
Correct.
Little things like that.
And you might want to mention why the images are on the inside of the wall rather than on the outside.
Right.
Well, again, this goes back to Leather's concern for everything being very, very safe for the children. And they felt that it was much safer to have this be on the inside. Should a child decide to try to scale, these symbols, first of all, if they fell down, they would be landing in a much shorter space than when it's on the outside wall. And they'd be landing on this 14 inches of mulch or sawdust or what, I don't know what these things are called, but it's very soft and very cushy. So even if they did that, they would not get hurt.
Right. So it's on the inside, on the south side of the playground. And let's start with this first ornament that we have on the wall. And Mark, tell us about this.
Okay, that represents the Bonnefield Cabin, and we were discussing earlier that maybe it needs some more paint on it. We didn't have time to get everything painted, I guess. The cabin was built in 1838 of hewn oak logs near Lockridge, and in 1907 it was moved to Waterworks Park, actually Old Settlers Park, which adjoins Waterworks.
This is the oldest cabin in Iowa, from what
We think it's the oldest in Iowa. I mean, who knows? There might be something in Dubuque that's older, but it's. I'm sure if you narrowed it down to oldest hewn log, story and a half, side entrance, south entrance, log cabin in Iowa.
This is it.
This is probably it, yeah.
And you are having restoration efforts done right now to the Bonnefield Cabin,
Yeah.
which we should mention.
Yeah, the county, the Jefferson County Historic Preservation Commission acquired the cabin, the deed to the cabin. Ben Taylor and Jack Whitaker are the last members of the Old Settlers Society. And of course, Jack is the sole surviving member with Ben's passing last October. And so we had the deed transferred to the Historical Society, and then they in turn transferred it to the county. So it's now county property, and it's under the county insurance umbrella, their package of insurance.
So
We've just gotten a grant for $3,400 to help put a new roof on it, which is very badly needed. And I think we're going to need probably $20,000 before it's over, because it needs foundation work. It needs to be graded so that the land drains better. It's settled somewhat over the years. We need to vermin-proof it in some way to keep the bats and the woodchucks and the squirrels out, and things like that. So if anybody has a few $1,000s they don't want, we'll take
send it this
Yeah.
way. So we thought it was very appropriate, and this had to be on the wall.
Well, and Fairfield was named in this cabin. I mean, almost everybody knows the story, but the Bonnefields were one of the early settlers in Jefferson County. And in 1838, when the commissioners from the territorial capital in Burlington came to Fairfield to plot out the original grid of the city, they stayed in the Bonnefield house on their way back to Burlington. And Mrs. Bonnefield suggested Fairfield as the name for the new town. So it's not every town that has their actual birthplace still preserved.
Yeah, that's neat. I'm glad you told us that, because I don't think I knew that. And then over here we have what we want to represent as a Loudoun Barn, which you're involved in the Loudoun Barn department too.
Yeah, pretty much. This last year we had 14 sites listed on the National Register that were connected with the Loudoun Machinery Company, which was founded in 1867 by William Loudoun. And the neat thing about this multiple property listing is that there are 3 barns included in it, which is obvious because they produced barn and hay and dairy equipment, and they had a barn planning service so that you could either buy one of their stock plans or have one designed, custom designed for your livestock operation. By 1930, I think they had designed 18,000 barns throughout the world, every continent except Antarctica. That's what some of the sales promotions said. And then they equipped millions of barns. So it was an important early industry in Fairfield. And the multiple listing included barns, the old factory, which is the Broadway building where Regina's restaurant is, homes that were designed either by the Loudoun Barn Planning Service for family members, or the family homes like William Loudoun's home at 5th and Washington, or his brother R.B. Loudoun's home at 2nd and Washington. And then there
also included the whirl around at the country club.
Yes, the merry-go-round thing.
because they had acquired a patent. I'm not sure what the story is, and nobody really knows whether there was a patent violation and they got the company as a settlement, or if they just bought the company because the company had a patent they wanted to use. But they built playground equipment starting in the 20s, I believe. So the whirl around is a last hurrah for that line of endeavor.
I didn't know that either.
And it's now listed in the Register of Historic Places, thanks to Mark's efforts again,
Yes.
which is fun. I think that's great.
So that is our Loudoun Barn on the history wall. Below that is a buffalo. Now, Nancy, I'll let you tell why we have this buffalo.
Well, mostly because Mark told me, and then I think he said he read in a book too that the last buffalo wallow was found in the 1850s. And actually, in talking with Frankie Beatty, I tried to discern exactly when those buffaloes, like the last one might have been seen, and she said, well, that would really be hard to say. However, it's safe to say by the 1850s, Fairfield was settled, and that what the settlers did, one of the first things that they did when they wanted to settle an area was they got rid of the buffalo, because that way then the Indians would leave. And because the Indians relied on the buffalo for, a lot of their needs, and so that was the way that the white people could, get the area, I guess, turned over, for more white people to come and settle. So I thought that was just an interesting little story. So again, she couldn't give me a firm date, but it was in the 1850s that they found a wallow, and so there obviously had been buffalo there quite recently.
And I know Ruby Bristow on her farm, there's a buffalo wallow, and supposedly there was one behind where Iowa Malleable is.
That's the one that that she said was found in the 1850s. And I was telling Susan when we were working on this that my parents' farm, which is out by Packwood, had a buffalo wallow.
And I said, what is a wallow?
So I had to explain to Susan what that was. And anyway,
which is where they lay and wallow around.
That's right. That's where they go, where water would pool up like when it rained, and it would be like a big mud puddle that they could go wallow around in. And so anyway, or at least that's...
Drown all the lice, or I don't know. Who knows? Right,
get rid of whatever, yeah. But anyway, so my family's farm actually had a buffalo wallow clear in the back of it, and I'm sure it's still there if anybody ever wanted to go see it.
See a real buffalo wallow.
Right.
Let's move around, and that was our first section of the wall, and then we moved around the corner, and this one's kind of like a little picture all framed in here, and it's got the Carnegie Library, which the famous arch in the front of the library identifies that, and then the dates 1853 and 1892. What do those dates mean?
1853 was when a public library was a library association was first established in Fairfield. I think Ward Lamson had something to do with that, and books were loaned out. And I'm not sure where it was located. There was maybe upstairs in one of the storefronts downtown. But then by 1892, which was the other medallion up there, that's the year that this particular building was built.
Okay. We were wondering.
Yeah, and it's endowed by Andrew Carnegie. And Fairfield is unique in the fact that there were two Carnegie endowed libraries in town. This one, the public library, and then on the Parsons campus, the Carnegie Hall that was built in 1906, 1907.
And also, I know that there are these magical little faces on the archway and the columns. Does that have a particular name?
Well, the columns are called a clustered pier. The pier would be like the base of a big arch, and because they're crunched together, they're clustered. And the faces are just sort of a takeoff on the medieval gargoyle, I would guess. Okay. There's a man's face on one base and the woman's on the other. The owl and the keystone would represent knowledge, or like Athena's attribute in Greek mythology was an owl, so that was wisdom, learning.
Then we came and thought we definitely had to have some corn, the farm and the corn of Iowa. And below that we have a pig, of course, and the date on that is the date of the first Iowa State Fair in 1854.
Which William Loudoun attended as a young boy. So everything ties together in a little town like this.
Which that actually took place on North 4th Street, I believe, and Grimes. There's a stone there today that marks the site of the first state fair. So that's one of Fairfield's firsts. Fairfield has a lot of firsts, and we tried to include them on this. And
then the railing.
Yes, the railing.
The railing is based on the jigsaw cut balustrade on the McElhaney house. So it's a nice little 1840s piece of detailing.
See, I knew Mark would know all those details.
We didn't even prep Mark. Susan and I just sort of stuck that in there, and so I'm pleased, Mark, that you recognize that's what it was. That's great.
We thought the Women's Club, the McElhaney House, should be recognized on here. It was the home of McElhaney's and Elizabeth. and an important home in Fairfield. And I know they're trying to raise restoration monies also.
And it's really nice to have the Bonnefield Cabin and the McElhaney House survive, because it shows you the amazing transformation from, country, rustic living to really quite an elegant home within, let's see, 1838 to 1840, 45?
Wow.
Within less than 10 years.
Yeah, 7 years.
Wow. So then on to the right of that is another representative of the Fairfield Square, what would you call this? Describe it.
Oh, the electric light tower. It's
No, the window.
Oh, the window. Oh, I'm sorry.
With the
Brown's Pharmacy.
Yes,
now,
the mortar and-
now Democratic design. It was built as the Clark drugstore back probably 1890, and it's interesting because it's kind of the medieval tradition of having a sign that is emblematic of your profession. And, a shoemaker would have a shoe hanging out in front of his store. So the mortar and pestle on top of this Gothic revival tower at the corner of the building is
that still there
reminiscent of that.
today?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, when Earl Brown still owned the building, there was a big windstorm, and that mortar and pestle, it looked like it was on a hinge and got flipped over, and Brownie had it fixed. So I'm thrilled with that. That's a one of a kind. It's real special.
So we made a good selection there.
Yes, we did, and I want you to know I was uptown just a couple of days ago, and I decided to check it out. And actually, the picture that I was drawing this from had the little window frames. Today, they're bigger pieces. I don't know if if they've been changed through the years from what they originally were. I noticed that I didn't feel like I'd drawn them quite correctly, but it could be that they were different.
There were multi-pane transoms in those top rows of windows, and those are still in the stairwell.
Oh, okay.
And those could be replicated and reinstated. But the tower was in bad shape, and we're lucky that the new owners didn't just yank it off.
Yes.
Right.
But at some point, it would be nice to have those windows replicated and reinstated.
Then we move on to the first part of the last long section, and we have the electrical tower, which was another first for Fairfield.
Yeah, I can't remember where Thomas Edison did it. It was in New Jersey. He had a small light plant built and did a public lighting kind of setup as a demonstration of the newfangled invention back in the early 1880s. And Fairfield somehow got the idea of installing a light tower in 1882. So Thomas Edison was first with his public lighting system, and we were second. And I think that's just pretty darn good.
Right uptown there.
Pretty forward thinking of whoever made that decision back in 1882.
I keep thinking I want to do a painting of the light tower encircled by all the extinct species of birds that were attracted to it at night. And they pick up dead birds.
Which a lot of them, I've heard you say, are in the museum.
And I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that said. So
must be.
Yeah, we could hope. The passenger pigeon anyway.
Yes. Now Nancy and I, when we were drawing this out, we thought this is really a difficult thing to draw because it's just metal sticking up there. So we put that little sign there.
Folks, yeah.
We put the sign there with the dates and the light bulb as an explanation to people that are looking at this.
Yeah.
That was the time frame that it existed. It actually was taken down in 1910.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It was located right on the square.
Right in the middle. And that's why in old photographs of the square, you see the old bandstand off center. The bandstand we have today is in dead center, but the old bandstand was built after the light tower, so they had to put it off to one side. And I guess when they made the new bandstand in the late 60s, they found footings for the old tower. I don't know if they kept those in the museum or not, but I remember they were found.
And the last thing in that little part there is the Tourney wagon wheel, which there was a Tourney wagon works around in that time also, and we thought that
they
would
were
be
in business until the early 30s. But they
until
built
there were no more wagons.
Yeah, they built like farm wagons, spring seats.
Okay. And then we move on to the Bar Height Chapel, and this has always been a very important building for Fairfield. A lot of Fairfielders have gotten married here. It's on the former Parsons MUM campus, and it's a special place to a lot of people, and the architecture's wonderful. It has wonderful windows. Maybe Mark will let you say a little bit about that.
Henry K. Holzman, who was an important architect of the day from Chicago, was hired to design this building, as some of the other buildings on the old campus. And this was built in 1911, and we're hoping that it'll be around for quite a few more years to come.
Yes, we do.
I mean, I'm sure Mr. Holzman built it to last for centuries.
And it is. It's a wonderful place to drive by and look at, and we thought that was important to have that on our history wall also. Another Fairfield first is the Fairfield Golf and Country Club is the oldest club west of the Mississippi.
Yeah, and for those people that I've had actually people when I was serving as president of the country club that said that that was maybe debatable. But as we were working on this, I did happen to read in one of the books, and I'm not going to say which one it was now, but this was the story which explains why it's called the first country club west of the Mississippi. Apparently in Burlington, there was a gentleman who built a golf course, but it was not a public golf course, or not public, but it was not a country club. Mm-hmm. It was, I believe, for his own private use. Therefore, our country, golf course, Fairfield Golf and Country Club, is in fact the oldest club west of the Mississippi.
I'm so glad you've set that to rest. That's worried me for years.
Well, I knew for all those people out there that just weren't sure whether they could really say that it is the first, it really, you can say that it is.
Now, I know there are some other things that maybe we could have done, we didn't think about doing. Some got overlooked. I know my parents supposedly had the first tourist cabins west of the Mississippi located in Chautauqua Park.
Oh, really?
Well, we couldn't put that on there. So there are things that maybe we have forgotten, but we tried to pick out what we thought in the short amount of time that we had to work on this, very important to Fairfield.
Well, and we also have space limitations.
Yes.
We can't necessarily, the wall, this was the space that they had designated for this particular thing. And also I think, we wanted to make sure that we have to be fair about, people that we put in. If there's someone that's still in business or maybe not still in business, it gets
hard.
It gets difficult.
Very hard.
You want to be careful that you don't. If you start putting people in that are still in business, then you would have to include maybe some other ones. You're right, leaving somebody out there. So
yes.
And we do have the Chautauqua Park Gatehouse, so
yes, and that was
your mom and dad can pretend.
That was at Chautauqua Park for the famous days of the Chautauquas of.
It was
the revival,
it was
tent revivals.
Yeah, it was kind of like what's the place in Iowa City? The big theater, University of Iowa.
Oh, the outdoor theater. It was a big place for things to happen.
Hancher,
okay.
excuse me. It was like a Hancher type
like
thing.
Performing arts.
Yeah. They would have plays and they would have inspirational speakers, William Jennings Bryan, opera, George Washington Carver, I believe, spoke. And then they would have programs for children, educational programs. I've got this darling little postcard of my grandmother. This is about 1906, sitting with a group of children listening to the Bug Man. And she's sitting there, she's just glued to every word this man says. But it's all these little kids sitting there on the grass, and he's talking about insects. And as far as
that was an important place. And
the big hall that they had was originally built to house a revival that Billy Sunday preached someplace else in town, and then they moved it to the park.
We also, looking through this book, we talked about, and I wanted to work in there at the Opera House, but it just didn't work in, so we went without it. Mm-hmm. We also move on here to William Coop and friend and boy. William Coop was the first white child born in Jefferson County, and this sculpture was created by Christopher Bennett for the Fairfield Art Association, commissioned him to do that, and this is a symbol of Fairfield, which the Art Association is really proud, and you played a part in that too.
Yeah, the idea was to have William Coop representing the early days, the early pioneers' days of Fairfield, kind of communicating with the up-and-coming youngster sitting beside him.
And if I remember right, the young man was dressed in clothes that were typical for a young boy to wear at that time. Yeah. So for those people, if you haven't ever paid that close attention when you go back up to the park, Central, you should take a look because it's really cute. The tennis shoes that he's wearing look very much like the year that this was done, which was, does anybody remember the year?
Oh, late 70s, I would say.
Right.
It wasn't any Velcro yet, I don't think.
No, there was no Velcro.
don't think so.
definitely not. And they weren't quite the big oversized looking type tennis shoes that kids wear today, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
And his shirt and so on and so forth. I just thought that was neat. His pants, his jeans, even the style of the jeans, you can tell.
There's a big belt buckle, I think.
Right.
Which we had to change because of people did not like the original belt buckle, which said "Kiss." Do you remember that?
Really?
And Chris changed that for us.
Well, I can understand them objecting to that.
Yeah. So.
Well, I don't know if I've ever said this publicly or not, but when the day the statue was involved, or
Unveiled.
Installed. I was involved in.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So they put William Coop in place, and I sat beside him on the bench before the kid got put in there. So I think me and the statue are the only ones that ever actually sat
right there
beside the old guy.
Right there. Neat. And then in the background above the country club, we have the dome for MUM, and this has become a part of Fairfield. We see it as we drive by. That's noted for Fairfield. And then we thought it was important to have some trees. Fairfield's a tree city.
Right.
And below we have a special little tribute to Lee Gobble. Lee has been an important member of our community. He had Gobble's clothing store, and he's a promoter of Fairfield, history buff, a little bit of everything.
Character extraordinaire.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Wonderful sense of humor. Twinkle in his eye, still willing to pull a practical joke even after all these years.
Yes, he's a wonderful supporter of our community, and we thought this was a nice little surprise that we tucked in there.
And always you could count on the little turkey with the little GGG coming out of its mouth in all of the advertisements for Gobble Clothier and on his sack, and he still has T-shirts that have those things printed up on them.
And if you're lucky enough to be on his mailing list, they show up in your mailbox once in a while too.
Yeah,
that's right.
So Lee Gobble, we want to thank you for all that you do for our community, and this is our way.
Is it time to talk about the clock tower now?
Well, let's finish up right here. We've got right here the modern day Fairfield Square, the bandstand. Fairfield's known for its square. At one time, people said Fairfield was Iowa's best square. I think that was recognized maybe 10, 15 years ago. And then behind
it hasn't changed too much. We still have the roses and the nice bandstand and so forth.
And behind it, we have the courthouse with the tower.
Oh, yes, that's good. Lee Gobble's heart's desire, I think, is to see that tower reinstated. And in fact, we're standing right beside the clock tower in the playground itself, which we'll be looking at in a minute.
Yes.
But it was damaged in a windstorm in 1947 or 48, I can't remember which, and was taken off. One, they were out of fashion by that time, and a square tower is a little more in keeping with modern tastes. But it's structurally sound and it could support a tower again. So here again, if you have, let's say $100,000 you don't want, we could use it.
Even a nickel or a dime or a dollar, I think, would someday get the job done. So we have the Fairfield Square behind the square. And Nancy, is there anything else on this project?
I guess, I was thinking about that as we were coming down to this point. I would just like to say thanks to both Mark and Susan for all of the input and the wonderful drawings, Mark, that you allowed us to use in the book. Susan also had drawings from some of these things that she brought.
That pig is yours, isn't it?
I think that the State Fair pig is yes, and this little the square. She had one of her pictures that she had done for a Christmas card or something that she brought. Anyway, so both of them for sharing all of their great ideas and creativity and drawings for us.
Not only that, but when we were drawing this out and making all these lines to be jigsawed out and routed.
I was just getting to that.
We were wondering.
Then I was just going to say, then next, we have to really say thanks to these guys, to all the people that helped do all the cutting out and the routing on this thing, because this is not easy. First of all, this is made out of a different kind of board than most of these people have ever worked with before. It's called Medix. And what's good about it is that it will last. we feel very confident that this is going to be something that will withstand some weather, because it is better than plywood. It's so much better than plywood. In fact, Gary Roth was one of the guys. He was sort of spearheaded the cutting out part of this. He had a couple of the people helping him. I know he had Pete Tollin there that did a lot of work. And anyway, Gary was very impressed, I think, because he took a hunk of this home. I think he was concerned that if it was like plywood, that with water getting into it, that eventually the layers would start to separate. And he took a piece of it home and he actually let it sit in water overnight. And did not soak up the water at all. So I think that's a testament to how hard this is to work with. However, on the flip side of that is, can you imagine what it would have been like to cut out around all of these shapes that we gave them?
So thank you,
yes,
Gary,
thank you very
and
much.
all of the men and women that helped
And all the
route.
routers, because
They were so cheerful about it, because like when I was designing the clock tower that we'll look at here in a minute, some of the brackets were too big and they had to cut them down again. And it's like I didn't want to say anything because I knew it was hard to do. And they were just so nice about it. Everybody was great.
They really were.
Very nice.
So thanks for making us look good, guys.
Right. And we do have the clock tower beside us. And at first, Nancy, I know you said that the Leathers and Associates did not think they were going to put the top part on.
Well, it was,
steeple.
yeah, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but we did have a little problem because, I was told that when we originally drew the design, this was back in October. You have to remember that we had the designer from Leather and Associates came here, and we asked the designer to be sure and draw it with a steeple on top, because we wanted it to be as it was supposed to look, because we knew Lee was going to be successful getting his fundraising,
and we wanted to help him out.
And we wanted to help him out, so we wanted it to be the way that it really used to be. So we asked, I understand. However, somehow or another, I think when the actual designer drove past the courthouse, he didn't see the steeple on it. No. So therefore, in the plans, he didn't draw it with the steeple on it. And so when I called Lee Gobble to ask him for some pictures of the courthouse, he said, "Well, do you want the pictures to be with or without the steeple?" And I said, "Well, let's have both, okay? Let's just have both." So he brought them both out and showed them to the Leathers people, and they said, "I'm sorry, but we had to quit last night because of the storms. They lost a couple of hours worth of work." And he said, first of all, it wasn't drawn in the designs that way, so we didn't plan to do it that way. But then we had the storms last night. We had to quit early. We had to decide not to do it. And so
with some smooth talking by Nancy and some other members.
Well, Lee really was, I think Lee was the one that sold him. I really think that, they saw the look in his face. And he had told them how special this project was to him, and he showed them the pictures and of the way it used to be. And he said, "Gee, it would look just like those other ones like you have right over there. Why can't you just take one like that and put it over there?" Anyway, so to make a long story short, they rethought it, which just goes to show you my favorite saying.
Never say never.
No.
Never give up.
No, my favorite saying is, "It's a fool that doesn't change their mind." Bless them. They rethought it, and the next morning I came back and they said, "We've decided to put the steeple on the courthouse." So I was thrilled.
And then I did a little finagling and got them to do the curved corners on it. Otherwise, it would have been a kind of an inverted boxed thing going there, and it would have looked kind of dopey with the steeple sticking out on the corners up above. It wouldn't have looked like the courthouse. So now it does a little bit more.
So now you've seen the history wall at the Playground Center, but we're going to stop the camera and just look at a few of the other embellishments that have been added. Okay. So this is a special slide, and I know Chris Hunt worked on this design. He was around working on the project anyway, and you were looking for someone with some creative talent, and you cornered him.
Yes, I think actually Mark might have suggested when I was talking to him, I said I need some artsy people, and it just so happened. Go ahead.
Yeah, I always hate it when people ask me names of artistic students because it's like, yeah, I see them every day, but then I can't remember who they are. But yeah, Chris Hunt was a great choice.
Well, anyway, he just happened to be out here on the site, which was great. So we handed Chris a paper and a pencil and said, can you come up with something that looks like a dinosaur? And the idea was we wanted to have, something that would go around the slide so that when kids came, down through it, it would look like they were coming through the mouth of the dinosaur. So hopefully we've accomplished that. They always have to make, these things always have to be made, again, so that they are safe. Exactly. So sometimes it's a little bit limited. These all had to be made out of basically like 2x6s that they had to cut out, and then all those things had to be sanded and put together and stuff. But thanks, Chris. He did a great job. And then some other gals were here that helped get everything all painted up so that it would.
And we tied it in with a slide color too.
Yes, we did. In fact, Mark had a little swatch that we had with colors that we didn't get a chance to show. I don't know if Richard wants to incorporate that. Oh, he's getting the kids.
Yeah,
but
the children on camera are the Joels. That's Miriam with her finger in her mouth and all the curls. Hey, Matthew, can you wave at us? It's Matthew in the middle.
That's my eye doctor, right?
That's right.
Yes.
And then that's Rebecca Joel there scratching her cheek.
And some of the other little embellishments around the playground, the handprint. I see a handprint. I don't know if you can tell, but kids actually did those, right?
Yes. Across the swing, what do you call the swing beam? It's called the swing beam. Was the big area that they wanted to put those. But yes, those are just the little chips of the pieces of Trex that they had. The kids actually painted those, and then the kids also took their handprints in paint afterwards, and then they made their handprints on those, and they're sprinkled sort of throughout this whole kids area.
And then right here in front of us, and you can't see it very good from this side, so I don't know if our cameraman can catch it, but there's a tic-tac-toe game, and it looks like they can actually play it.
Yes, they do. It's cubes that have the letters X's and O's are routed into those cubes, and the kids can actually play tic-tac-toe. There's also, I don't know if you, Richard is catching, there's an alligator over on the wall over there by the little car. And
race car.
Yes, there's a little race car over there. And then, like I said, there's the alligator that's out in front of that. That's sort of cute. And we have also crocodiles here. And Mark was saying earlier, one of the gals that was helping out here working actually came up with the idea of routing a couple of signs. One goes by the alligator, the other one goes by the crocodile that says, "See you later, alligator," and then the other one says, "After a while, crocodile," which I thought was fun.
Holly Moore.
Okay.
And let's take one more camera break and one more scene.
Oh, there he is.
Okay, this is actually a pirate ship, and I just looked at it for the first time, and boy, this looks like something I would have loved to have when I was little to play in. And you designed the pirate.
Yeah, unbeknownst to me, Nancy had already designed one.
Oh,
But
And I wish she'd have these cute little mustaches sticking off on either side of the face. But this is a good example of the safety provisions. Because Lee, I forget his last name, that was in charge of the building crew, was very insistent that any openings had to be head safe. Is that the term he used?
to get in but not get through, I
Yeah,
imagine.
so it had to be at least 9.5 inches wide. So that opening is 9 5/8 inches from center point, no matter which way you go, and a little bit bigger in some areas.
Now, I know that this has to be taken down, and Nancy, you have the job of finishing the painting. So
correct. Basically, again, I would say because of the weather on Sunday, they've really had to shortcut anywhere where they possibly could see that wasn't going to jeopardize safety again. Since this is just a decorative thing, they've just got it up there with, it's screwed on. So the Park and Rec's going to take it down, and then we'll finish painting it up. So if you think it looks awesome now, which I do, I think that's like the most awesome, gnarly looking pirate I've ever seen. I mean, he has everything. He has a parrot, he has the skull and crossbones, he's got the
peg leg,
the treasure,
hook.
the treasure. Man, this guy has it all, or this girl.
No eye patch.
No, that was not that's a safety problem there. So anyway,
Yes.
but this is a gnarly pirate. If you think he looks great now, come back when we've got him painted up, and he'll be really more colorful and way better.
So, as you can tell, there are a few finishing up things around here to do. They're still accepting donations for the pickets that you can have names engraved on. I did one for my granddaughters, Emily and Isabel, and that'll be up here somewhere, and I can't wait to bring them here and show them. It'll be a surprise.
The color palette.
Okay,
Yeah.
a couple more things, Susan. One thing that we should make note of, there is a special area, and I think we're seeing part of it right here, where the pickets for memorials. So that's why these are not over.
Separate.
That's right. That's why these are in a separate area from the other ones that you see. There's a lot more pickets around the corner, but these were memorial pickets. And eventually, we hope, of course, that there'll be more. But they're in the top board here. We're going to route it in memory of, or something to that effect, just like the pickets are done, so that people will know that those are people that have passed away. And then on the history wall, there was something else that we haven't gotten done yet either. On these 2x6s that go underneath of all of the pieces, they will be routed with the names of all the towns that are in Jefferson County today and ever existed in Jefferson County.
That was quite a list.
And it is quite a list. I have it with me over my folder. I think there were 29 names of towns on the list. And so the 2x6s have to be taken off. The names of the towns, which are really funny, obscure, like Absecum and Bellwith and Bellevue, and in addition to all the ones that you all know, like Saline and Pearly and Four Corners and whatever. Anyway, they will be routed into those 2x6s, and they will go from the entire length of the history wall. And we may have to use an extra board or two, because I don't think we can get them all fit in. So that'll pretty much finish that up.
So when you come out here to visit, you'll not only get to see the kids play, but you'll get to teach them a little bit of Fairfield's history, and what a fun way to learn and a fun way to remember. Mm-hmm. So, Mark?
And also an expert use of a very limited color palette.
Yes, a challenge.
How did
challenge.
you decide on these colors?
Well, actually, it started out, we had seen from some pictures of some other playgrounds that they had used this combination of what I would call a deep purple and sort of a hunter green. This happens to be called Robin Hood green. I said I love the name. It sounds very playful. I think we'll pick that one. But anyway, so we started out with these two here, mostly because the slides are this green color, so we felt like we needed to incorporate that, and we wanted something else to go with it, and we thought the purple was fun, and it sort of, fits in with the sky in the background. It's got a lot of a blue, in it. It's a little bit more playful than that. Then we decided to add some red, and then we added also this pea pod green down here, because we felt like on the history wall we needed to have just a little bit more color to it, and I think it actually worked out really well to have those four. We did also use the hazelnut cream for just some of the lighter places, like on the pirate's shirt and the dinosaur's teeth and the handprints
Rather
and
than
so
pure
on.
white.
Right, so that
My gosh, how long did we talk about that?
well,
All these things you see took lots of time and talent and decisions by lots of people. And Fairfield, thank you for participating and volunteering all the time that you did to make this project happen. It's an awesome place, and we hope that you'll stop by and visit. And it's O.B. Nelson Park, the Partners for Play playground. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Nancy.
thanks, Susan.